Thank you. To continue this conversation, about how this happened and where we go from here, I want to bring in Republican Florida Representative Laurel Lee, a member of the House Judiciary Committee. First and foremost, Representative, what are your thoughts, following all that we're learning from what happened last night, particularly this manifesto that the shooter had?
Well, first off, of course, we're just so grateful that the men and women of the Secret Service were able to keep the president and all of the other officials and guests there last night safe. The manifesto itself will be the starting point for a thorough investigation about who this individual was, what he was planning, what he had in mind, whether he worked alone. That's the type of investigation that federal law enforcement will be engaging in the days and weeks to come, much like they did following the assassination attempts previously against President Trump. It is such an important part of understanding what has happened to inform us about how we can try to better prevent these types of events in the future. Our Secret Service has a zero-fail mission, which means every single day they've got to get it right. And one of these predators only has to get lucky once to have a much more tragic outcome.
And we know how difficult it is in general to try to prevent these lone wolf attacks. You were part of the bipartisan task force that investigated what went wrong the day of the president's initial attempted assassination back in July of 2024 during his campaign event in Butler, Pennsylvania. What were your biggest takeaways from that investigation? And do you think the security measures, as we have seen them so far, improved enough since?
Well, that's a great question. And a couple of the things that we saw in Butler, first, there were serious questions about whether enough analysis had been done on the perimeter itself. Were the areas around where the president was speaking considered? Were they covered? And we thought in that investigation that there were places clearly where the assailant was able to get up on the roof that they were not. There was also a significant breakdown in communication on that day in Butler, where local law enforcement and federal law enforcement weren't communicating clearly with one another when the crisis did arise. And preliminary signs about last night, it's very early, but it certainly appears that the perimeter was successful in identifying this as a dangerous person and that he was apprehended. Meanwhile, the president and First Lady and the other officials were very quickly removed from the situation. So those preliminary indications do look like there's a lot that went right last night that, of course, we want these things to never happen. Yeah. But if they do, it is so imperative that our plans, our safety perimeters, and those protocols work effectively. And it appears here that many of them did.
Yeah, and you cannot underscore enough the courageous efforts of the Secret Service. I mean, in some of the video, you see them immediately jumping in front of the president as a proactive measure. If something's going to happen, it's going to happen to them before the president of the United States. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche says that was the suspect's target. Government's preliminary investigation appears to show that the shooter wanted to target the president, his administration. In that manifesto, it talks about going from highest to lowest ranking members. There have never been more attempts on a president's life like we've seen with Donald Trump. You have to go back to the 1970s with Gerald Ford, 2 attempts in 17 days on his life. This is now potentially the 3rd attempt on the president's life. What do you think is happening here? Have we reached a political fever pitch?
I do believe that we have. And of course, what has been happening to President Trump is just horrific. And that he responds with calm, courage, and resilience each time is just remarkable and is such a good thing for our country. But the epidemic of political violence extends to, we've seen threats against Supreme Court justices, state governors, members of the state legislature, Congress. We are at a moment in American history where, unfortunately, these threats are being used in a way that's very cavalier. And some individuals are taking them into real, decided, violent action plans. And so it's really changing the way that we think about public service, the way that we think about security. I know in the House of Representatives, we've had to take significant action to increase our mindfulness and our security around individual members because the threats just continue to rise. But, I'll tell you, in my own state just last week, Leader Jeffries used the phrase, it was going to be all out warfare or something like this about congressional races in my district. But I think sometimes we do this without thinking that these words have meaning, but they do. I mean, they're terms that harken violence, and it's just not the way that we need to be talking to and about each other.
What has to happen then, and who takes charge to lead the direction in the opposite direction that it's heading now? Because where do you go from here? The president has been attempted assassinations at least 3 times now. You've got, as you point out, judges, members of Congress, where this is continuing to happen too, and you want things to start heading in the opposite direction.
Well, I'll say, I think the president said a really beautiful thing last night. He talked about how in the wake of this incident that everyone in that room was so unified, regardless of party, regardless of how they may have felt about each other when they walked in, that having this terrible moment actually brought them together to support each other. And the kindness that they extended to each other in the moments after this was really heartening. And, I think we can all really take something from that. It shouldn't take an incident that is this terrible for us to pause and think about how we can do better. But it's everything from citizen all the way to president. I think we all have to find a way to be able to disagree and to disagree strongly, but to still recognize crime is crime, predator is predator, and attacking someone is never acceptable and is going to result in the appropriate prosecution and sentence.
Yeah, so it was a strong and really important message, to your point, that the president delivered just shortly after this attack went down. President Trump is calling to have another White House correspondent dinner in the next 30 days. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it is such an inspiring thing to go through an incident like this and to have the first instinct be, let's carry on. Let's not let a bad person like this affect what we do as Americans and the way that we live. I think that spirit, that vision is really an inspiring thing. And I hope that they are able to do it. I know this is a massive event, so the logistics about putting it on, I'm sure, are not easy. But I hope that they're able to do it. I think that's a wonderful symbol for the American people, and it would be a great thing for us to get to see.
Yeah, it's one of those scenarios where you don't want these attackers to win. You don't want them to prevent a major moment like this. This is not a moment just for the press and a party and the president. It's a moment that represents, as the president pointed out, free speech. These are scholarships that go to journalists, a young journalist. I think it is important to see it happen again. We'll see if it ends up happening in 30 days or at some point in the future. Really appreciate your time, your insight, your perspective. Republican Florida Representative Laura Lee, thank you for joining us.
Great to be on today.
All right.